All right, so we are live here for ACCFI Presents. My name is Nina Means. I'm the director for Austin Community College Fashion Incubator, and I want to just welcome you to our talk today. The talk is called The Evolution of the Way We Dress, and I'm here with Ed Jones. Ed is a dear friend of mine. Ed, I met you whenever I moved to Texas about 4 years ago. And, Ed began his career in retail at Neiman Marcus, mentored by Stanley Marcus himself, who was one of the greatest merchants of all time. He was one of the buyers that, brought in the Polo Ralph Lauren brand into the store. He's worked side by side with major brand builders in the industry, Doug Tompkins of Esprit, Ellis, Calvin Klein, truly extraordinary visionaries in the industry. So we're looking forward to chatting with Ed on key insights really into why brand building is so key. Ed, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. Nice to see you.
Great to see you. Ed, you told me, time and time again, product, is really what it's all about. You can't really build a brand without a fantastic product. What have some of the best brands done in this space?
What have some of the best brands done in this space? Well, I can only speak from experience, and in my case, I was fortunate enough to work with Doug Tompkins, who was probably the greatest visionary in terms of a true worldwide vision, and in terms of things that are modern now. And I'm speaking of working with him back in the late 80s, but back in the late 80s, Esprit began sort of as a follow-up or an offshoot of what Benetton had done globally. And Benetton did an incredible campaign that was all about color, and it would be an ad with probably maybe anywhere from 20 to 30 young people, and there was a mix of colored garments, but there was a mix of colored faces that was
Mhm.
noticeable back then, really noticeable, and that was extraordinary for the moment, and that was what Doug followed up with at Esprit. In fact, we used the same photographer, Olivero Toscani, who's one of the greats, literally one of the greats in the whole world. And we used him and worked closely with him to create our image, which was different, but following the same lines. And what Doug created in the company was a company of equality. I mean, we had a headquarters that had the largest Amish quilt collection in the world, and we had a full-time museum curator. We also had the only lawn tennis court in San Francisco, so you can understand that it was quite a place at the time. But Doug was big on equality. In fact, in 1988, we had maybe the first ever transgender bathroom,
Wow.
because we had first one, and then two, and then three employees that wished to be open about their transition, and it was welcomed, and we had restrooms for them, and it was it was a very special time. But anyway, that's a branding thing, and totally what Esprit did was a great brand establishment of young, fresh, colorful, but color being the key
Wow.
ingredient to that.
That's fantastic. I feel like in so many ways, Esprit in that moment was so ahead of the time. We've seen so much change here in the United States in terms of legislation and policy and recognizing, people who identify as they identify, and it's such a testament of inclusion, throughout time, but just how much more other brands can do. But I see, I want to tie up that moment of just translating color through the product, and really landing on a great product for the times. um I was curious, whenever you worked with some of these iconic brands in the business, I know that you've really, guided a lot of them in terms of landing on just that most, excellent or perfect product. Um, how do you guide them to land on those products? What are some of the reference points that you look for, for products to have to be, competitive.
Well, I, you know, I don't believe I guided any of the greats that I work with. I worked side by side closely with them and supported their efforts and did the best I could. But what I would say to young designers coming up, again, it's all about product. I mean, it's just so fundamental that the product is what
Mhm.
it is all about. And I say to young designers, I look at things from the lens of the PIB factor,
Okay.
PIB, and it's like when you're starting to develop a product, when you're starting to develop a brand, put that aside, okay, and concentrate on developing the product. I mean, that's the most important thing. Okay. And the PIB factor is first, is it practical? Is it does it fit into the marketplace in such a way that is important and where you can make a contribution? And then the I is innovative. And hello, Johnny.
Yes, you can hear little man in the background got some
Yeah,
blocks and things to
good.
keep him busy. So, yes,
So the P is practical and the I is innovative, and so it needs to be new and different. Be innovative, be different from the rest, and make it special and new. And then the third, the B is just so fundamental. It needs to be beautiful, whatever it is, whether you're designing a car or a chair or a blouse or a dress, it needs to be beautiful. So that's the where it starts, and then the building of the brand is the next step, and you've got a lot of work to do to develop the product first. And I'm happy to be involved with the Fashion Incubator at Austin Community College, because that's what we're all about, is to develop and nurture young talent and maybe some old talent. Maybe we'll have some old talent that'll come in that just needs some help. But
absolutely.
that's what we're going to be doing, and teaching them the skills that they need to design well, but also help them to develop a point of view and a vision, because that's really what it's all about.
Absolutely. I would be remiss to not mention
Yeah.
that Ed is on our advisory board at Austin Community College Fashion Incubator. So, our emerging designers have such a treat to be able to get a chance to mentor with great minds like Ed's, who work side by side with, those who've been really the greatest merchants, in our time, those who've built brands, iconic labels that have really defined an era. And so it's such a treat, Ed, to have you, because now we get a chance to reference these key points in the product, and be able to really build our market here in Austin. So it's a pleasure to have you at the incubator.
My honor.
So, now that let's say that we've got this beautiful product going, now what? Like, how do I get the brand, like, how do I nail down this brand idea? Where does that really go?
Okay, moving into the brand development part, I believe that the foundation of any brand should be the brand aesthetic. And what does that mean? As the aesthetic is that element which will always be involved in terms of the graphics of the brand, and it will set a mindset so that when a consumer sees that symbol or that look, or it could be a photographic attitude, like in a Ralph Lauren ad. I mean, you see that Ralph Lauren ad. I mean, that's the aesthetic. It just creates a feeling that tells you, oh, that's Ralph Lauren.
Hmm.
So you get it immediately. In Ralph Lauren's case, he built a lifestyle around his brand, and a very big way to do it. And I think over the years, it's quite amazing what he's accomplished. But stepping back a little bit and talking about at least my experience, Calvin Klein is a good example. His aesthetic is clean and modern, and colors of taupe and gray. I mean, there was a time when his colorations were very somber, but he had that modern edge that was important to him. But Calvin, he lived the life. This was a period in the '70s when it was Studio 54 and the celebrity thing was just beginning to be cultivated as a point of view, and he was in the middle of it. So Calvin Klein lived his brand lifestyle literally. When we launched the first Calvin Klein men's collection in New York, Calvin took a whole floor of the what was then the Celanese building, which is now the Fox News building, and he hired Joe Durso, who was probably the top modern contemporary designer, to design our space, and it was like nothing the retailers had ever seen.
Wow.
You walked into the door, and there was this giant buffed metal Calvin Klein logo in an oval that became the new logo carrying forward. It was started in the men's showroom, and everything about the space was just amazing. Buyers loved to come there, and it was a party
I love
atmosphere.
that.
So that's that's what he did. He took the modern clean edge and built everything around that, and then he lived the life. And again, I think living the life is important in his case. Skipping forward to Perry Ellis, Perry was about color and pattern
Mm.
and boldness and whimsy. Uh, Models skipping down the runway. This was like something no one had ever seen. Of course, the Perry Ellis showroom was like nothing no one had ever seen too. It was a former bank lobby, and it was 40 feet high ceilings with marble columns and marble floors,
Wow.
and of course it was designed. The space was designed by James Terrell, who's a great friend of Perry's and designer of space and homes, and it was just an atmosphere that was just alive and clicking, and it was amazing. And shows would have celebrities, and of course Andy Warhol always stepped in at the last minute. He didn't want a seat. I always asked him, "You want a seat, Andy?" No, he wanted to just stand there and
Wow.
watch. But again, Perry created that as a counter almost to the modernity of Calvin. And at the time, they were both head to head. They were the top two women's wear
Mm.
designers. So that's another example of building a brand on an aesthetic, and in a couple of cases, having the aesthetic be your lifestyle. So obviously, lifestyle is also what it's all about. When you get to the point of having some elevation to your
Hmm.
brand and you're getting some notice, it should be, it possibly should be about your lifestyle.
Absolutely. I really appreciate kind of that balance between, the brand aesthetic and what do buyers feel when they walk in the door. It's, you've got the business to business customer experience, and you've got the actual, the customer experience, and then there's the aesthetic, the lifestyle that's kind of, created, in that moment, in that brand. So, I'm really, all of the, first of all, the stories are amazing. I love all like, oh, this is what this showroom looked like, and that's what that showroom looks like. And, it's just so cool to hear, what those experiences were like, in those moments. I hope that we'll see more showrooms do things more like that. And as we go forward, just kind of creating those experiences, in their spaces, one of the things that you know, outside of kind of the, graphic and lifestyle piece, we've really seen such a transition, in terms of what brands have been able to do, in terms of creating these moments. And unfortunately, COVID-19 has really put us in a very different space. I'm actually gonna, since we started a little bit late, I'm gonna go a little bit later. So just kind of giving everyone a heads up. Also, just so you guys are aware, we are connecting with Ed via satellite. We are so glad that he's relocated closer to the area and the Hill Country. Beautiful, land. What is it? Blue Cypress Ranch. Um,
Yes,
yeah,
Blue
so
Cypress Ranch.
beautiful, beautiful land that we are connecting with Ed via satellite. So if there's any, change in the image or the sound, we just want to, say something about that, just in case you're having a, different experience connecting. But I believe we're all set. I think we're good. But I do want to kind of get back to the talk, and we're just going to kind of go until we're done. We have, this transition with COVID-19 has really put us in an uncharted territory, regarding brand experience and all of that, and there've been a lot of challenges, but, are there any, particular challenges that you're seeing that have kind of come out of this moment, that are of note to you?
Challenges plenty, and of course, we don't know yet how it's all going to settle out. But I think what we need to do as professionals in the meantime is just keep our nose down and just do the job. Whatever you're working on, just stay with it and don't get distracted by all of the indiscreet chatter that is around us all in terms of news and that sort of thing. Because I think it's a very not very
Yeah,
good. But we're going to come out of this. It's going there's going to be an evolution of fashion, and that's what
mhm,
fashion is
absolutely.
evolution. And what it's going to look like when we come back. I'm guessing that perhaps it could be like a butterfly, where there's a cocoon and then it just sprouts into this butterfly. I'm hoping and praying that that's what the market is going to happen with the market. And what could be important coming out of this is freedom of expression within one's brand and designs. I think could be important and probably will be important. For me, I believe that back to the butterfly, I believe that color is going
Mhm.
to be major. Everyone's going to want color, and color is an attitude provoker. There's no
Absolutely, I would
question
agree
about
with
it.
you.
And yeah, and I think that that's maybe a kind of a vision look to what we're all going to be facing when things settle out, and there's disease is controlled, and life goes
Yeah.
back to normal. It's going to be a new normal, yes, and but we will deal with it. But if you're on a product or on a project, stay with it and
Absolutely, you have to
make
stay
it
the
make it
course.
happen.
You're right. There are a lot of things that are happening, in our world between the pandemic and, the demonstrations and protests that are happening globally, and, brands trying to engage appropriately in those things. It's a lot. It's a lot. I know I feel it. I know a lot of people feel it. But you're right. Color is an attitude provoker. There's this, these feelings that we get, when we wear red, it's kind of this, sense of empowerment, women in a red suit, or, even your red lipstick says, okay, I'm doing business today, there's
Yeah.
definitely, I think that we want to see a bit more, attitude wielded through our wardrobe, whether, it's yellow and kind of communicating a more upbeat or cheery mood, or blue and a bit more calmness. I think that there's, a desire to create, this kind of, I love what the imagery you said about the butterfly. Kind of, we're all kind of in this cocoon right now. We're inside, we're staying at home, and then, once we emerge, the idea that we really want to see some color, we want to, really express ourselves, I'm actually surprised to see how many, cool face coverings have been coming out of this, in that self-expression space, so that's really
Yeah.
kind of a unique thing to see as well. We just have never, I think in this moment, we haven't really seen this kind of shift, but, this kind of fashion shift has happened throughout time. We've really seen that, haven't we? It's something that we've seen, kind of this,
Yes.
incubation and then this emergence, you know?
Yes, yes. In fact, after the period after World War One and the big flu that took millions of lives, literally, that begot lavish embellishment. I mean, people started embellishing and wanting to, again, almost a butterfly, wanted to, like, physically show something new and different. It was also the physical liberation that really created the flapper era, and that was real seismic. And then there was the Harlem Renaissance, which emerged during the same period, which again is just a major new thing that came out of everyone being closed off and being in the war. And so, yes, in history, there is a historic follow that is really important to look at.
Absolutely. And then we kind of look at, the Dior, kind of the new look of 1947, kind of these, you know, um, the waistline and the shape of the skirt and, kind of that refined woman. Then if you go way back to the 14th century, when there was the plague, this really kind of changed the way that people were dressing during that time as well. More body conscious dressing, more plunging necklines or adornment. That it kind of ushered in the European Renaissance. I lived in Italy in Florence for about a year, and you just see so much of the art prolific around that time. Kind of showing you like all of the amazing changes in fashion and the way that people adorned themselves and the architecture and the inspiration that came out of that time. That it's almost like laying dormant and then kind of a reemergence on the other side. So I'm so curious to see, as we kind of continue through time, what that looks like again.
Yeah. And sort of as a follow up to that, of course, after World War II, there was a rebirth of beauty, and that began a whole new period, and going into the 50s and the 60s. And moved to the 70s, and we had the oil crisis and a big recession that really set everybody
Jonathan,
back on their heels and kind of stopped everything. And then what came out
Jonathan,
of that? Disco Rama, and again a color explosion. This is after the 70s recession and oil crisis. I mean, we were lined up for gas with $3 and $4. It was like $4 a gallon or something. But anyway, color was a big part of it. But also in the 70s was a birth period of new design talent. That's where we first saw Yves Saint Laurent. That's where we first saw Calvin Klein. Where we saw Ralph Lauren. First when we saw, hi Jonathan.
say hi.
First when we saw Perry Ellis, and then of course Giorgio Armani, who brought the modernity of European fashion to the forefront. All that happened in the 70s. So it was again coming after a down period of recession, but historically that's what we've seen, and we're going to see it again, and we're going to be a part of it, and it's going to be exciting. It's going to be wonderful. I think we need to be hopeful about this, and do what we can to contribute.
I couldn't agree with you more, Ed. I think that, the key here is for us to take a focus on, what the possibilities are coming out of this time. It's been difficult for a lot of people, I mean, and we kind of highlighted these different times that were exceptionally difficult over history. But, the emergence of what happened on the other side of that was really this explosion of color and expression, art and architecture and fashion. We really could see something pretty amazing here in maybe just a year or two's time. But I appreciate your focus on the hopeful expectation of what's coming ahead. Just in closing, guys, first of all, Ed, thank you so much for joining us here on ACCFI Presents. We've really enjoyed our conversation here with you today, and your background and your what you have to share with us has been so incredible. We are so we're so fortunate to be able to have you on our board, and to be able to infuse this information into our local industry. But as we share more information virtually, we hope to have you back, to get a chance to talk more, about your background and your experiences that, help us build the market here again. So again, guys, just remember some of the things that Ed brought out in the earlier part of our talk. Really just landing on, that product that's practical, innovative, and beautiful, landing on a brand aesthetic that has a strong graphic and lifestyle element, and really just understanding the evolution of style. Our fashion always, rides the wave. And so, again, we're in this space where, we'll see some emerging, trends come out of this, maybe more color, more expression, than what we've been able to do sitting here at our homes, waiting on this to pass. But again, we are so fortunate to have Ed Jones join us here with his incredible background in fashion. And we will be back here again next week for ACCFI Presents. We want to thank you again for joining us. My name is Nina Means. I'm the director for Austin Community College Fashion Incubator. If you haven't subscribed to us on YouTube, do so here. I think you just hit the bell to subscribe on our YouTube channel. And then if you want to catch us on our Instagram or LinkedIn, Twitter, or Facebook, we're at ACC Fashion Incubator. And last but not least, if you want to keep up with any of the content from Workshop Wednesdays or Coffee Talk, we do share that content on our email list. So that's fashion.incubator@austincc.edu. So that's just some extra information to kind of keep you up to date on what's happening in our business. So thank you again, and we are so happy to have you here for ACCFI Presents. My name is Nina Means, and we'll see you next time.